Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this Sunday sermon from Holy Saviour Church in Hitchin on this Easter day. And a very happy Easter to you. I wonder how great must have been the sheer sense of joy, the sheer immense joy of that first Easter. What must the apostles have experienced in that moment? I'm just going to tell you a little story from Russia, and I wonder if this story might just help us to catch a little bit of a flavour of their joy on that day. And this story comes from the First World War, and it's about a Russian Cossack who had two sons called Peter and Gregory. And one day he got a letter from the front, and being unable to read, he handed it to his daughter. And it was from Gregory's commanding officer. And the letter began like this. The letter said, "I regret to have to inform you that your son Gregory was killed in action on the 10th of July. Gregory was an excellent soldier and died the death of the brave. You have every reason to be proud of him," and so on and so on. And the effect of this news on the father was immediate and was alarming. He seemed to wilt visibly, and in a matter of days he aged. He turned grey almost overnight, and his memory began to fail, and even his mind was affected by this absolutely devastating news. He began to drink excessively, and he would keep this letter under the icon in the kitchen, and each day he would take it down. He would ask his daughter to read the letter to him once more, but as soon as she began, "I regret to inform you that," he would take it from her and he'd put it away again. After the local priest had offered a requiem for his son, he did feel a little bit better. But anyway, 12 days went by like this. But on the 13th day, a second letter arrived from the front. And the letter said his son wasn't dead after all. He had been wounded and had been left for dead on the battlefield. And the next morning he'd come to, and he crawled 4 miles back to his own lines, dragging a wounded officer with him. He was to be raised to the rank of corporal, and had been awarded the Cross of St. George in recognition of his bravery. Right now, he was recovering from his wounds in hospital, and they could expect him home soon. On hearing this, the father was a sight to see. He was just lit up with joy, and he grabbed this letter and he went into the village with it, and he stopped everyone in the village that he met, and he made them read this letter. He said, "My son's alive! My son's alive! He's been awarded the St. George's Cross for bravery." And I tell this story, this true story, because I just wonder if it gives us some idea of the joy that the disciples experienced on that very, very first Easter morning. However, there are differences from that first Easter. The Cossack son, of course, hadn't actually died. Jesus had died. The disciples had witnessed his death with their own eyes in a very, very public occasion. And now this tomb was empty, and Jesus had been seen alive. We must remember, however, that the resurrection wasn't a return to earthly life. Jesus rose to a new life that was beyond death. Their joy bubbled over. Jesus, their leader, Jesus, their friend. He'd broken the chains of death through God's power. death, the last, the greatest enemy, had been overcome in him. This joy of the apostles, it's our joy too. And of course it doesn't immediately remove us from the fear of death, for we all still have to go through that. But it was by going through it that Jesus overcame it. And so it is for us who believe in him. Without Easter, the story of Jesus would have been little better than a little flare in the night. Darkness would still have had the last word. But with the fact, the glorious truth of the resurrection, we know that darkness did not have the last word. So let's not be afraid, especially on this day, let's not be afraid to bask in the bright light that the risen Jesus, the risen Christ, has brought into our world of darkness and pain and death. We should never allow anything so to fill us with sorrow that we forget the joy, the sheer, great, intense joy of Easter, the joy that Jesus is risen from the dead. Have a very happy Easter. Our hymn today is Jesus Christ is risen today. And may God's peace go with you.